Let's dive into a story from the very dawn of the atomic age. It has a name that sounds like something out of a legend, but its consequences were terrifyingly real. We're talking about Tickling the Dragon's Tail.
And at the very heart of this story is this thing. A small sphere, a scientific marvel just brimming with potential, and, as it turns out, pure danger. It became infamous not for its role in a war, but for the devastating accidents of peacetime. Accidents that cost two brilliant physicists their lives because they dared to get just a little too close.
So, where did this thing even come from? Well, its story starts right at the tail end of World War II. It was a core built for a weapon that never was. This is it, a 6.2 kilogram sphere of pure plutonium. Back at the Los Alamos lab, they actually had a nickname for it, RUFUS. Kind of friendly sounding, right? Well, RUFUS was meant to be the heart of a third atomic bomb, one planned for use against Japan. But then, Japan surrendered. And just like that, RUFUS went from being a weapon of war to this intensely curious object for scientists to study. But here's the thing. Peace didn't mean safety. Not at all. For the scientists at Los Alamos, the end of the war just meant that a new, much more personal kind of risk was just beginning.
And that new risk led them to a series of experiments with this, just chillingly poetic name, Tickling the Dragon's Tail. It was basically a high-stakes game with the fundamental forces of the universe.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it? But what were they actually doing? What does it even mean to poke and prod at something so powerful that you literally call it a dragon?
Okay, so the answer comes down to this one concept, nuclear criticality. The best way to think about it is like a tipping point. On one side, the plutonium is, well, it's relatively stable. But on the other side, you get an uncontrollable explosive chain reaction. Criticality is that razor's edge, that knife's point, right in between the two.
So, the scientists were trying to nudge this core right up to the very brink of that tipping point, without letting it go over. They were tickling it, trying to get crucial data right there on the edge of total disaster. The dragon, of course, was that catastrophic chain reaction they were risking waking up with every single test.
And that brings us to the first tragedy. Because when you're working on a razor's edge like that, even the tiniest mistake can send you tumbling into the abyss.
You have to realize, these were not remote-controlled experiments we see today. No, this was literally hands-on science. These brilliant physicists were using their own two hands to move materials that could kill them in the blink of an eye. The margin for error wasn't just slim, it was non-existent.
And when an accident happened, man, it happened fast. Terrifyingly fast. It could start with a simple mistake, like dropping a brick of tungsten carbide. That's a material they use to reflect neutrons back into the core. That one slip of the hand was followed instantly by this eerie flash of blue light. That's the air itself being ionized by a massive burst of radiation. For anyone in that room, seeing that blue flash meant one thing. You just received a fatal dose. Incredibly, after one physicist died in exactly this way, it happened again. Less than a year later, another top scientist took another deadly gamble with the exact same plutonium core.
You really have to ask yourself why, right? Why keep doing these insanely dangerous, hands-on tests after the first death? Well, the pressure to understand this new atomic science was just immense. It was like a post-war scientific gold rush. And maybe there was a little bit of hubris, a belief that being brilliant was enough to keep you safe. It was a fatal miscalculation.
So, two separate accidents. Two brilliant physicists, Harry Daghlian and Louis Slotin, lost their lives. And that core, the one they once called RUFUS, earned a brand new, much more sinister name, the Demon Core. But these awful tragedies, they weren't completely in vain. The loss of these two men forced a fundamental, undeniable change in how this kind of dangerous research was done. Their deaths became a lesson that was paid for in lives. The days of those risky, hands-on experiments were over. Done. After that second death, it became absolutely mandatory to do all similar tests using remote controls, keeping the scientists at a safe distance. You could say the Demon Core forced the creation of safety protocols that have probably protected countless people ever since. So, what do we take away from all this? The story of the Demon Core, it's more than just some spooky story from history. It's a really powerful parable about our relationship with technology and discovery. It's a reminder that even being the smartest person in the room isn't enough when you're dealing with the fundamental forces of nature.
At the end of the day, it reminds us that caution isn't the enemy of progress, it's a necessary partner. Because as those scientists at Los Alamos learned in the most tragic way possible, in the dance with the atom, one misstep can awaken the dragon.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. Our quest for knowledge, for progress, it never stops, right? We're exploring AI, genetic engineering, new kinds of energy, so we have to ask ourselves, in our own world right now, where are the new dragons? And are we being careful enough as we reach out to tickle them?